Pam Bondi seems to think and seeks to have Washington State bend the knee to a Trump administration that day by day drags us closer to authoritarianism. That's not going to happen either.
If you are someone who is tired of there being a lack of fight in Democratic politicians, stick around for this one, because here is an example of how to act, of how to behave, of how to comport yourself, of how to reply when threatened with criminal charges by Pam Bondi and Donald Trump. Pam Bondi sent a letter to the governor of Washington, Bob Ferguson, threatening criminal charges, threatening arrest and prosecution because he doesn't want to spend state dollars. It's a sanctuary state. And that means they don't want to divert desperately needed funds to support the federal government's mission with state dollars. If the federal government wants to do it, spend the money to do it. But you can't rely on the taxpayers of Washington to back an immoral measure, the terrorizing of immigrants in this country. We're witnessing on the streets of Washington, D.C. You're seeing videos of the brutality in L.A. and cities all across the country. And it's not the moral imperative, the legal imperative even, of the citizens of Washington to fund their police to take part in that. That's what sanctuary cities policies are. That's all it is we're not going to spend our money doing what the federal government tells us to do. That's not their purview. After all, states' rights, states' rights, states' rights, states' rights, 10th Amendment, 10th Amendment, 10th Amendment. The same thing you hear conservatives say when it's about COVID or about slavery or whatever, right? So here, I'm going to read 3 paragraphs from this letter from Pam Bondi to Bob Ferguson, and then I'm going to play 2 clips of Bob Ferguson absolutely in a very mild-mannered way, because he's not bombastic. He's not an asshole like me. He's a gentle speaking individual, but the words he speaks come down with a hammer. First, Pam Bondi's letter. Let me get my glasses since I'm getting old. Dear Governor Ferguson, the United States has a long history of cooperation with state and local law enforcement agencies, including for immigration enforcement. Such cooperation is vital to enforce federal law and protect national security. Recognizing that need, Congress has codified the duty of states and local governments to cooperate in immigration enforcement efforts. For too long, so-called sanctuary jurisdiction policies have undermined this necessary cooperation and obstructed federal immigration enforcement, giving aliens cover to perpetrate crimes in our communities and evade the immigration consequences that federal law requires. Under the dear leader's leadership, full cooperation by state and local governments in immigration enforcement efforts is a top priority. Skipping down to the next paragraph, as the chief law enforcement officer of the United States, I am committed to identifying state and local laws, policies, and practices that facilitate violations of federal immigration laws or impede lawful federal immigration operations, and taking legal action to challenge such laws, policies, or practices. Individuals operating under the color of law, using their official positions to obstruct federal immigration enforcement efforts and facilitating or inducing illegal immigration, may be subject to criminal charges. Page 2. Further, pursuant to the dear leader's directive, blah, 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 you are hereby notified that your jurisdiction has been identified as one that engages in sanctuary policies and practices that thwart federal immigration enforcement to the detriment of the interest of the United States. This ends now, she says in a letter from the DOJ on Department of Justice or the Attorney General letterhead. This ends now. By Tuesday, August 19th, that was yesterday, 2025, please submit a response to this letter that confirms your commitment to complying with federal law and identifies the immediate initiatives you are taking to eliminate laws, policies, and practices that impede federal immigration enforcement. This letter does not constitute final agency action, and nothing in this letter creates any right or benefit enforceable at law against the United States. A little get out of jail free card at the end there, Pam. Well, yesterday, Governor Bob Ferguson of Washington held a press conference. And again, this isn't he has a different personality and a different tack and a different style than Gavin Newsom. Bob Ferguson doesn't sit down on a podcast with Nazis. He doesn't break bread and yuck it up about how his son is a big fan of Charlie Kirk. Not with Steve Bannon either. He doesn't do that. That's Gavin Newsom's style. His style is a little bit more methodical, a little bit less bombastic, a little less headline grabbing. And that's why efforts like this and videos like this are so important. If you're still here waiting to see what Bob Ferguson said, share this video, like this video, comment on this video so YouTube will share it, so people will know there are other fighters out there other than Gavin Newsom, who is doing good work in that respect, pushing back against Donald Trump. It just, breaking bread with Nazis, kind of a deal breaker for me. Unless your opponent is also a Nazi or is a Nazi, then, I'm going to vote for Gavin Newsom. Anyway, here's Bob Ferguson. I got two clips. The first one, and then we'll follow it with the second.
I recently received a letter from U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi. I think you all have a copy of that. It purports to notify me that Washington State, and these are her words now, has been identified as a so-called sanctuary jurisdiction. That's her line. By the way, on grounds that her letter makes no effort whatsoever to explain. She refers to unidentified policies and practices within Washington State that she asserts violate federal law, once again, without any explanation whatsoever. The letter goes on to invoke federal obstruction, conspiracy, and harboring statutes that carry criminal penalties with prison time. Bondi even threatens that state officials, including some of the folks who joined me today, by the way, just so we're clear, even threatens that state officials, and I'm quoting now from her letter, operating under the color of the law, using their official position to obstruct federal immigration enforcement efforts and facilitating or inducing illegal immigration may be subject to criminal charges. That is breathtaking. And a letter like this cannot be normalized. Let me be very clear. Washington State will not be bullied or intimidated by threats and legally baseless accusations. In the America that I love, and have taught my children to revere, we resolve our differences peacefully through public discourse, and if necessary, through the courts, not by threatening political opponents with imprisonment. Pam Bondi takes a very different approach. Her letter threatens me, police officers, state troopers, sheriffs, judges, and other officials with prison time.
See, that's the rub here. Pam Bondi's not just threatening the governor himself. She's threatening legislators. She's threatening cops. She's threatening state troopers. She's threatening anybody who's an official in Washington who has sworn an oath as a public official, as a public servant. That's what she's doing. He also explained there exactly what the sanctuary state policy is. Does it sound criminal to you? He wraps it up. It gets better. Watch this.
If Pam Bondi really believed Washington State is in conflict with controlling federal law, she would make some effort to explain that. She did not because she cannot. In 2017, I was the first state attorney general to challenge President Donald Trump's efforts to trample our Constitution in court, and I was the first attorney general to defeat him. Along with the excellent team in the Office of the Attorney General, we went on to defeat the first Trump administration 55 times in court. We were unsuccessful in just 3 cases. Given that history, I can assure you, I am prepared to defend Washington from any litigation the Trump administration wishes to pursue. If they choose to challenge me and my state, we will defeat them and seek all appropriate costs and fees. Pam Bondi seems to believe that cavalierly citing criminal statutes and personally threatening me, a democratically elected governor, will result in compromising the values of my state. That is not going to happen. Pam Bondi seems to think and seeks to have Washington State bend the knee to a Trump administration that day by day drags us closer to authoritarianism. That's not going to happen either. I am not intimidated by Pam Bondi or the president. Nobody standing behind me is intimidated by Pam Bondi or the president.
It's just threats. She's not explaining what laws have been broken. The attorney general of the United States of America, the head of the Department of Justice, a lawyer, is not explaining what federal laws are being broken? How can they correct their behavior, Pam Bondi, if you don't explain what they're doing wrong, sister? Huh? And then finally, he says boldly, some would say bravely, we're not intimidated by you, Donald Trump. We're certainly not intimidated by you, Pam Bondi, you sycophantic bootlicking lapdog. We need more of this energy from Democrats. Unfortunately, we find ourselves in a position where governors seem to be the most strong elementally in this fight. We have a lot of bravado on the part of senators and congresspeople. Not a lot of actual action, especially in leadership. Chuck Schumer, asleep at the wheel. Hakeem Jeffries, he's working too hard to not get Mamdani elected in New York to actually do his goddamn job. I don't know. If you're looking for a fight, if you're looking for a fighter, and you're disappointed like I am, you need to let them know. In fact, here's just another opportunity to drop the Capitol switchboard number, 202-224-3121. Call your member of Congress and demand an actual fight. Not just rhetoric, not just words, opposition. Delay, deny progress to Donald Trump and his fascist agenda of his attack on community members of the United States, people who make our economy better, who make our country better, who strengthen us all. Anyway, what do you think? I invite you to this conversation. You can have it in the comments below the video, wherever you're watching it. You can also call the voicemail line, 714-576-4054. And of course, as always, you can email me daily@dollemore.com. If you're interested in helping support this work, go like the Facebook page that I just created yesterday, Dollemore Daily on Facebook. There will be a link below. We are trying to get to 10,000 likes on that page as a measure to promote this content on Facebook. Links from YouTube get suppressed when you share them on Facebook. So if you share that content natively on Facebook, they love that. And we would appreciate that very much. Anyway, I love and appreciate you. I want your opinion on this, and I'll see you next time. Good for you, Bob Ferguson. Appreciate the effort. The rest of you, be genuine. Take care of one another.